What is up, JL Life? Modell here. In today's video, we're finally going to get rid of this pesky FAD. Stay tuned. So just to kind of give you a visual representation of kind of what I'm trying to articulate here. You have your axle tube, and you have the FAD motor coming off the side of the axle tube. As you lift the Jeep, a lot of people have been pushing their caster out to a higher degree in order to give them a smoother ride. So when you're adding caster after you lift your Jeep, what you're essentially doing is rotating the bottom of the axle out forward, which of course subsequently leads to the top coming back. So what that effectively does, I didn't plan that one out very well. You have your axle tube, and as you rotated it, your motor is going to start coming off the back. And of course, that's going to become your new low point on your axle. Maybe not your new low point, but it's going to become another low point to be getting hit on rocks. And as this isn't designed to really take hit on rocks, one, it's going to get you hung up. Two, if it cracks, you're going to start leaking oil. You don't want to lose your oil in your front diff. That can be extremely problematic operating a differential without oil. So one of the purposes of this is, since I will be deleting the FAD, not only will I be losing that low point, it does make a couple bolts easier to get to once underneath. And do you need to do this? No, of course not. Your Jeep's going to operate just fine with the FAD motor. But if you go to a solid axle up front, there's no point of having it. We're about to get into all the install and all the different parts in order to do this delete. Stay tuned. All right, so deleting the FAD actually is going to take 3 different steps in order to fully delete. I've already done 2. This is finally going to be the last step in deleting the FAD. Now, what the FAD is what they call a front axle disconnect. Now, it's this little actuator motor that attaches to your front axle on the passenger side. Now, the idea of the FAD is to disengage the front axle, so when you're rolling down the road, the front axle and diff aren't also rotating, which prolongs the life of your front axle because you're not working it, because it will not rotate while it's driving. I apologize for background noise. Neighbor is pouring concrete today. How it works is this motor has a ring around it, and I'm sorry, I've lost the ring. Oh, and I don't know where it is, but anyways, a really big thick washer that fits around this. Now this will rotate left and right to engage and disengage your axle. Now how it works is, this is actually my old axle, and it would look like this. It was total of 2 pieces just for the passenger side. Now the FAD would be sitting directly in the middle where these 2 pieces combined, and it would slide, that fork would slide over and slide the coupler. Again, it was just a very large ring around both, and it would connect and it would function as one piece, and it would rotate together. When you took it out of 4 and you were back into 2 high, it would disengage and you wouldn't be spinning the front axle. So the reasons why they do this is it saves a little bit in gas mileage, and it's cheaper for them to mass produce, I'm sure. Me, personally, I would have loved to have seen Jeep put locking hubs on the Rubicon models, because that just would have been badass, and I wouldn't have had to done none of this. This is much cheaper for them to do, and of course it's all automatic locking hubs. You got to jump out and turn them on and off, and Jeep was really just pushing to dummy-proof this Jeep as much as possible. So getting back into all the different steps that you're going to need to do a FAD delete. So one, you're going to have to replace your 2-piece axle with a solid 1-piece. So the first step in order to do the FAD delete is going to be replacing the axle shaft. Now this is the most important part of doing it, because you start deleting this and you have a 2-piece axle in there, you're going to have issues. So the first step is going to be doing this. Now, I've already replaced my axle with the RCVs, and I did that about a year ago. I'll put the link to that video here, so you can go back and watch how to do that. The second thing you're going to be needing, you replace the axle shaft. This still works as normal. You won't have any issues. You won't have any dummy lights or nothing. It will continue to function as it believes there is no problem. You'll be fine. Now, if you remove this, now I have read online, I have not personally seen it, but removing the FAD while the electrical system, which is what the taser is for, while the electrical system still thinks the FAD is there, you will have issues going into four-wheel drive. Now, the second step is what you're going to need, is you're going to need the taser. Now, what the taser will allow you to do is go into the settings and completely delete the electronic system for the FAD, and you won't have to worry about it. I'll put a link to that video here. The last thing you're going to need to do once you deleted the electrical system and once you replace the axle shaft with a one piece, you can finally remove this guy. However, if you take this off by itself, you're going to have a giant hole in your front axle. You don't need that. So that's where this last piece comes in. Now, this is a delete plate. Nothing too fancy about it. I will be losing all this extra real estate off of the back of my axle. And of course, it sits a little lower, just kind of how my axle is positioned right now. So I got more caster, it starts to get rotated down that much more. So this piece I got from CADFAB, relatively cheap for what it is. Yes, you can make your own plate. Quite honestly, I didn't see the point of doing it because it's already been designed, cut, and ready to rock and roll. So removals are going to be pretty simple. First thing we're going to do is remove the skid plate, and then we'll be able to access the actual FAD actuator. To do that, you're going to need a 10 mil socket. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one is back here. For some reason I got tape on mine, but right there. You'll need a thin socket for this one. Next step is going to be removing the plug. There's typically a white clip in here. I broke mine. I break my stuff a lot, but unplug it. Get that out of the way. Then we're going to be removing this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Just at this point, be prepared to catch oil because it is likely once you take off the actuator, you're going to get some oil leakage. Get yourself an oil pan to avoid making messes. Get yourself a 13, and is that a 13? I grabbed a 15. Weird. Does look like a 13. Yes. Whoop. See the oil leak? Yep. After removing those 4 bolts, pull right out. After removing the FAD motor, you want to inspect those red gaskets going around the hole. Make sure they're in good condition because that's basically what's going to stop your oil from leaking. So on the sides, you have these little pins that help hold it in place. The 4 holes, and of course these guys that are protruding from the bottom. Everything kind of just matches up with the plate. That fits really nice. You're just going to be reusing your hardware. It's 4 bolts. Because we are doing a seal here, you're going to want to tighten in a crisscross pattern. Good habits. If your gaskets are in bad shape, just use RTV to make your own gasket. After getting it bolted in, get your excess oil cleaned up and inspect for leaks. And sometimes the best way of doing that is just letting it sit for a couple minutes. But it looks all good. So we've gained the clearance from the FAD motor. Again, you add caster to your JL, it starts pushing the lower half of your axle forward, which means the top is going to start rotating backwards, and this motor is going to start hanging lower and lower down. and it's going to be your low-hanging fruit. And you hit it hard enough on rocks, you're going to crack it and you're going to lose oil. And you don't want to do that in your diff, because a diff running without sufficient amount of oil can be severely detrimental to your Jeep. So that's the main reason why I wanted just to go ahead and get rid of the fat altogether. I have no purpose for it. So again, very clean fitment. I got this plate from CAFAB. It does come bare steel. I got mine powder coated. Of course, you can just spray some engine paint on it and you'll be good to go. Link to the product in the description below. We are finally all done with the whole FAD Delete. It is my purpose to really show how robust you can make these Dana 44 axles and how much abuse we can actually push their way. Everything's going to be done in steps. That's just kind of how my budget will allow me to do it. This is a pretty straightforward delete. However, again, there is some extra steps to it. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for more, because we're always pushing stuff out. Yeah, keep it easy.